how do you, of course, not everyone likes everything that you do. So, how do you deal with both the good and the bad from like ratings and reviews? And like, have you ever, as a creative, how do you kind of deal with some of that? You put your book out there and you get 10 5 stars, but then maybe you get the one star. How do you kind of work through that and deal with some of that stuff?
I mean, I think the first time you get a negative review, so I had a 1 star review quite early on with my first book, and I think it's the first time you get it is the hardest, and I guess I just took maybe a day to myself where I just thought I don't really feel like writing today, maybe too much, and I'm just not going to think about it. And at some point, I'll feel motivated again and inspired. Like you just you just have to work through and think, okay, that's fine. That person didn't like it, and I think other than that first one, which I think that the first one probably does hit you a little bit, but because I know that I've had that, and it doesn't bother me as much now. I mean, obviously, um, I want people to be out there reading it, and I'd rather people didn't force themselves to read it if they're not enjoying it. But people should, if they want to review a book, should give what they honestly think. And um, I think my books probably there's people that will enjoy them more than other people who necessarily wouldn't. Like it depends on what your reading tastes are, and yeah, I think you just have to accept that it's part. If you're putting yourself out there, and it's hard to put yourself out there and say, look, here's something. You are opening yourself up for criticism, and I you're never going to cheer a 1 star review, but I think it's all about balance and just remembering, look, I've got 1 star review, I've got 5 star reviews. Some people love it, some people don't. It's a fact of writing, and you you learn to kind of accept that you, as long as you don't take it personally. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think it's with any creative, if you make anything creative, it's hard to not be attached to it. And then if you get that bad review, it hits you a minute. But I think a lot of people, I would hate for that to stop people, because I think that's what happens is they kind of put themselves out there, they get maybe a bad review, and then they just say, nope, I'm not doing it anymore. But I think there's so many, like you said, I think there's so many more people out there who will like it and want to support it, other than the people who won't. And so it's worth continuing to follow that and put yourself out there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's still things to learn about how you make sure it gets to the right audience, because the people that are going to enjoy the book are the people that want the right genre, the right kind of themes in the book, and trying to make sure that you've got the right cover and the right marketing and the right blurb is a learning curve for anybody. So I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. There's a lot to balance there too. There's a lot of like, again, I've learned this like doing YouTube. It's like you make a YouTube thumbnail and you make a video, and the title and the thumbnail and the topic, and like sometimes this doesn't work. And that's the like how with you're balancing a lot of creative elements. They might look at your book cover and love it and pick it up. They might look at it and say, yeah, not for me. And you just can't please everyone. You just got to make what you want to make and go for it.
Very true.
Yeah. So, kind of branching off of that, we talked about self-publishing, but I think you mentioned that you had done some querying. Um, so maybe a little bit, do you know about what that was like for you? And then maybe why you decided not to do that anymore, or
I think with my first book, I did send a couple of queries, but as I say, I'm sure my query letters were not. Now, when I see people writing query letters, they're all structured according to a format, and I just tried to follow based on the guidance on the website, which is not the way to do it. Like it has to
Mhm.
be polished and it has to be marketable. And I didn't really put that much energy into it because I didn't necessarily think that was the right way for my book anyway. I guess probably the places where I would say I've had acceptances and rejections are more short story type world, and it's actually quite interesting because you're more likely to get well, I say more likely from what I've seen. I think you're probably more likely to get the odd personal feedback through short stories as well, or at least have more contact with more editors or publishers that way. So it's just taught me a lot about how you communicate with other people in the industry, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's I've heard a lot of all sorts of stories about querying, about people having good experiences, people having bad experiences, how you write the letters, and yeah, it seems like a whole kind of it seems like a lot, and that's I can see why people would be like, no, I'm just going to self-publish it. That seems like really hard to do.
Yeah, I mean, with my second book, it was more a choice of having the control over being able to see. So, like, I can control the price. I
Mhm.
could control that it came to market now instead of waiting a bit longer. And so, the things that were important to me worked best with self publishing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So as we kind of start to wrap up, do you have any kind of final thoughts or advice, or for anyone who's wanting to maybe get into this or to self-publish their own work? Do you have anything that you'd want to like tell someone who's a little unsure or not, doesn't know what they're going to do or how to do it?
I think I would say talk to people, find people that can um, give you their experiences, and don't take everything literally. You have to balance up whether it makes sense to you as well. But I know I'm usually happy to talk to people and say, oh, this was my experience, and people contact me. So there are people out there um, who who can tell you, oh, this is why I did, don't do this, or do this, or use this formatting tool. You just have to um, kind of get back to that, immersing yourself in the community. um, I think it is helpful to sort of get a bit of a feel for things first, so that you can see how other people are doing things, and know what good looks like.
Yeah. Yeah, and doing just your research on other authors and what they've put out and what their covers look like, and just kind of like you said, just talking to people. It's amazing what happens when we just talk to each other, you know?